Bangladesh, a nation forged in revolution, faced another upheaval in 2024. Years of discontent with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government reached a boiling point. A movement against an outdated quota system morphed into a nationwide outcry. Bangladesh's vibrant youth were no longer content with the status quo. They yearned for a fairer, more equitable society. The year 2024 marked a turning point in Bangladesh's history. Years of frustrations over corruption and inequality created a tinderbox of resentment. The spark was the quota system in public service recruitment. This grievance resonated deeply with a population weary of systemic injustices. At the heart of the 2024 revolution lay a contentious policy, the quota system, implemented in the aftermath of Bangladesh's liberation war to uplift marginalized communities. The system had, over time, become a source of contention. Critics argued that it had outlived its purpose, creating a system where merit took a back seat to predetermined quotas based on birthright. This, they argued, bred resentment and hindered the nation's progress. The quota system, initially intended as a temporary measure, had become deeply entrenched in Bangladesh's bureaucracy. It reserved a significant percentage of government jobs and educational opportunities for specific groups, including descendants of freedom fighters and marginalized communities. While noble in its intent, the system had created a complex web of entitlements and resentment. Many argued that it perpetuated a cycle of inequality, where access to opportunities was determined not by merit but by birth. This system, they felt, stifled ambition and rewarded mediocrity. University students, often at the forefront of social change, emerged as the vanguard of the 2024 revolution. Frustrated by the limited opportunities available in a system they perceived as rigged against them, they took to the streets, demanding a complete overhaul of the quota system. Their call was simple yet powerful, a merit-based system where talent, not lineage, determined one's fate. The students' demand for meritocracy resonated far beyond the confines of university campuses. It tapped into a deep-seated yearning for fairness and equal opportunity. The existing system, they argued, punished those who strived for excellence while rewarding those who happened to be born into privileged categories. This sense of injustice galvanized students across the country, uniting them under the banner of a merit-based society. Section 4. From Campuses to Streets. The protest movement ignites. What began as peaceful demonstrations on university campuses quickly transformed into a nationwide movement that spilled onto the streets of Bangladesh's major cities. The government's initial response, a mix of dismissiveness and attempts at appeasement, only served to further inflame the protesters. The situation escalated rapidly, with clashes between protesters and law enforcement becoming increasingly violent. The government's heavy-handed response to the initially peaceful protests backfired spectacularly. The use of tear gas, rubber bullets, and in some cases, live ammunition against unarmed students shocked the nation and galvanized international condemnation. The images of bloodied students and the stories of brutality at the hands of law enforcement fueled public anger, turning a movement against the quota system into a wider revolt against the government's authoritarian tendencies. Section 5. The government's response, crackdown, and criticism. Faced with mounting pressure and a rapidly deteriorating situation, the government resorted to increasingly authoritarian measures. A crackdown on dissent ensued, with arrests of prominent activists, restrictions on media freedom, and attempts to control the narrative through propaganda. However, these actions only served to further erode the government's legitimacy, both domestically and internationally. The government's attempts to quell the protests through force and intimidation only served to strengthen the resolve of the demonstrators. The arrest of journalists and activists, the shutdown of social media platforms, and the intimidation tactics employed by law enforcement only deepened the public's mistrust of the government. The more the government tried to control the narrative, the more it lost its grip on power. Section 6. A New Dawn, the Fall of a Regime. The 2024 revolution in Bangladesh marked a watershed moment in the nation's history. The protests, ignited by quota reform, exposed deep-seated grievances against the ruling regime. The government's heavy-handed response and refusal to engage in dialogue proved to be its undoing. Driven by the youth, the movement led to the downfall of Sheikh Hasina's government. The revolution reminded that power resides with the people and the importance of respecting fundamental rights. The events of 2024 offer a glimmer of hope for a brighter future.